I figured while I had these here, I'd do a quick video on the early teens Victrola 2-spring motor. There's two in those years. They look basically the same, except one is bigger than the other, as you can clearly see here. Same basic layout. They just made this motor a little bit larger. 1.25" springs, 1" springs. 17-foot springs, 9-foot spring. Well, two 9-foot springs and two 17-foot. But otherwise, you can see, and of course, this has the larger weights in the governor. This has the smaller. This motor, I believe this came out of a 1913 or 1914 Victrola the 6th. And essentially, this is just the single spring motor used in the Victrola the 4th, expanded with an extra spring barrel. They just made it wider and stuck an extra spring barrel on there. Otherwise, everything else is the same. All the other parts are exactly the same. While this motor is the one you would find, this is out of a 1915 Victrola the 9th. That's what it originally came out of. Although it's the same motor you'll find in the 9, the 10, the 11. Probably some other ones I'm forgetting. Typical 2-spring motor is what they use in a lot of stuff. And I think it goes back to at least late 1912, around in there somewhere. And they would use this until they started with the so-called improved motors in mid-1917. And this one's actually one I rebuilt for shelf stock. I'm trying to cobble together something. I don't know how I end up with these projects. But basically, this motor is out of a Victrola the 11th. Yeah, how does that happen? Let me explain. Instead of fixing the motor that should have been in there, what they did was, because they probably didn't have parts or knowledge, they ripped the motor board out of it. Basically, everything under the lid came out. They removed the horn assembly, and they stuck an intact Victrola the 6th in there and cut its motor board so that it would fit into a little square. I don't know how they did this. Squared it together. Basically, it's a Franken phone at this point, but it means it has sentimental value to the family that has it, and they want to be able to play it like Grandpa used to. Well, I imagine it did play. The horn was just the Victrola the 6th horn in there, but it did play. Broken spring, and I don't have too many of these little springs. I really don't want to buy two brand new ones because the budget for this is like zero. This is essentially a freebie, and springs are about $40 each. And I always replace them in pairs. So I was hoping I had one of these little motors in stock. In fact, this is what I had in stock. So that's not going to do it. Just as well, because I really didn't want to give this motor up. It's my spare. It's all done. And, it's a $125 job to do one of these motors. Just to clean it. Never mind put new springs in it. And this one has new springs in it. I don't want to... something, I'm not 100% sure of that. I might not have put new springs. These might have been good springs, and I reused them. Either way, it's a good motor to have handy because it fits so many different things. This one, I got to do some searching. I must have one buried somewhere amongst all the motors that I have, and I have just hundreds of them. Let's see. I put these side by side so you can see. Literally, it's like they made it out of wool and it shrank in the wash. Look at it. Oh, dust in here. See the difference? Boy, there's some grunge on there. The other reason I was hoping I had a rebuilt motor in stock was it's cold outside, about to get a lot colder, and I really don't feel like scrubbing this when it's 25 degrees out. I use old gas to clean these motors. I work outdoors, far away from any source of ignition, and it works extremely well to strip off that old grease. If you do decide to use gasoline in your own Victrola adventures, please be aware gasoline vapors are explosive, and they can travel They hugged the ground for quite a distance to find an ignition source. I'm working in the middle of a big field. There's nothing there to ignite anything. So I'm safe and there's plenty of ventilation. You don't want to breathe that crap either. And I happen to have access to a store of old gas to use. Pump gas is expensive these days. There's other alternatives. Not better maybe, but other alternatives. You could use diesel fuel, kerosene, simple green, and water. Oven cleaner. I mean, there's so many different things. Everybody has their own particular way of doing it. I just like to use gasoline because I always end up with motors like this that are just crusted to death. And I don't want to spend 5 years cleaning it. It's already going to take me two or 3 hours to get the basic cleaning done here. So, look at that. Ugh. So I use the old gas method, which is the ones that they used in the day. Back in the day of 50 octane fuel. Modern gas is a lot more octane and much more dangerous. And look how that's crusted on there. I mean, that is just a mess. Especially on the springs. When you open those barrels up, it looks like midnight in a coal mine. I mean, it's bad. A good look at that. But there's no right way, no wrong way, as long as you get the grease off. And you work smart. Don't use gasoline inside your garage or in your house or in your backyard right next to something that sparks, And if you do that, you blow up. Don't blame me about it. I warned you. Here's the warning right now. I thought I was done cleaning Victrola motors for this winter, but apparently I don't get off that easy. One more sneaked in, and the springs for the Oak Victrola the 9th arrived about an hour ago. But that project will be on hold for a while now, and with the cold, I'm not going to get to that for a bit. I'm just not going to subject myself to that. That machine is mine. It doesn't belong to any customer. I can take all year to do it. And when it's done, I will probably sell it. Or I might keep it and sell the other one. Who knows? Who knows? It depends if it grows on me or not. Because I have more coming. And I don't want to be, some have to go. Some do have to go. But there's no rush. I don't have any customers' machines coming in right now or anybody asking me to do work, so I can take my time. And, you could actually fit this motor where this went. If you look where the screw holes are, right here, the spacing here is actually the same. The difference, oh no, it isn't. This is further out. Never mind. You'd have to drill some holes, and that's more work that I am going to do. But one thing you would have going for you is it does appear that the crank is in the same spot on both motors. So you would not have to relocate the crank hole. But why you'd want to put a smaller motor where the bigger one was, don't know. Not something I would do, but people like to play with these. And back in the day, and today too, people would build stuff out of old Victrola parts. They'd make their own machines. We saw that in that horn machine I did last month, which is still with me. And what else? I've done a few in the past where people had done a little tinkering. Oh, the other Oak Victrola, the 1913 Victrola the 9th. That's from about 6-7 months ago with the triple spring motor put into it. There you go. At least with that one, they graduated upward. They didn't go from a big motor to the small motor. I suppose it works. But, why not just use the Victrola the 6 the way it is? Why put it in a big cabinet? The whole point of a large machine is to get the better sound, the bigger, not better sound, but louder sound. More volume and all of that. So you stick a little 6 in there. Now you got the 6's horn. The 11's horn is gone, and you've got the 6's horn, a smaller one. Plus, it kind of looks, cobbled together. But everything else here, as you can see, is the same thing. I don't know what kind of grease I used on this. I think I had some old military bearing grease left over, and I was using that for a while. And it worked pretty good. It worked pretty good on Victrola motors. Never had a problem with it. Stays creamy when cold, but eventually I ran out. And I went to white grease or the red grease, and the same stuff everybody else uses pretty much. Not that there's a right grease or a wrong grease. Don't get started on that argument. I hear that all the time on the internet. This grease is what you should use. That grease is what you should use. The factory used this in 1905. You should be using it. You know what? Any grease works, and any grease is better than no grease. Whatever you use is right. Whatever pleases you is right. Use what you got. If you got Vaseline and you want to throw in some graphite powder and mix it up like they did in the old days and use it, go ahead. Nothing wrong with that. You want to use white grease? Nothing wrong with that too. You want to use moly? That's fine also. These are steel springs in steel barrels. The only thing that's going to hurt them is a lack of grease. You do have to be a little careful when you get into brass parts, because some greases can break brass down. Really, this isn't something we have to worry about here. These are thick brass pieces. They're not thin brass. That's more like for thin, like if you had a lantern tank like that one, that's not brass. But if you had a lantern like that with a brass tank, you'd be very careful what you put on it because you could crack the brass. Not so much on these, that is more of a worry for people with bronze and brass parts inside of winches and heavy-duty industrial motors and things like that. Not so much here. This is mostly iron and steel. You are not going to hurt that with any grease we have on the market today, or they had in the old days. And frankly, the crappiest dollar store grease we have today is probably going to be better than anything they had in the 1920s. It doesn't dry out as quickly. It works better. Has all those wonderful space age lubricants in there, super lubes and whatever. So you might as well take advantage of that while it's available there. But there you go. There's a look at the two motors, the big and the small of it. Have fun.